We're live? Will somebody out there ping me, please, so we won't get accused of not being live on the air? Sorry, I can't say that. Oh, boy. Never a dull moment around here. Okay, we got the official ping, so we're live. And first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to the special meeting. It is now 6:01, and I'm going to determine whether a quorum is present. A quorum is present. It says invocation, invite a resident to assist. John, did you want to step up or? Okay. I give it I would do it myself, but I've got a frog in my throat. Okay. We'll skip the invocation tonight, but we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll bet you that Captain Zuniga would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Captain, I want to congratulate you not only on your promotion, but on the promotion I gave you on next door. I think I listed you as Lieutenant Zuniga. So in case you ever make it to that, I was doing it in advance. Thank you. Huh? Oh, Captain Zuniga. But I called him Lieutenant Zuniga. Okay, here we go. New business, consider and act upon an ordinance 201803, 27A, amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of Ordinance by authorizing the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at a special nonprofit charitable, civic, or religious organization events. Is there anybody who wanted to speak on this from council? Yeah, hang on just a second there, please. Hang on just a second. Let's have a motion to get it on the table, and then a second, and then we'll get into it. Do I have a motion to move it forward?
I so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Let's move forward. Is there anyone who would like to present this?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a point that our city attorney has made an amendment to the ordinance that was posted, so it has changed somewhat to track the exact language of a specific TABC permit.
Mr. Brennan, do we need to go back through the process of a first and a second, since we did change the ordinance that they approved?
What do you mean they approved? Who's approved it?
Well, they just did a first and a second to move it forward.
Oh, yeah. I assume they're using the one that's the latest one, the latest
Is
version.
all of council understood that they were using the adjusted version?
Yes, sir. This one, the newest.
JR?
Yeah, the city manager got a copy to everybody.
Frank?
No, you're
Okay.
good.
Good deal. We got that. Sorry. Y'all go ahead. Judy, did you want to speak, or John? Someone speak on this?
He's letting the public speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm John Kenny, and I'm the president of the Castle Hills Community Organization,
John, would you state your address, please?
103 Briarcliff.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sorry. We all are here tonight to ask you to amend the Castle Hills ordinance allowing the Castle Hills Community Organization and Fiesta Castle Hills to sell alcohol during Fiesta Castle Hills. This is the first time we are asking for a variance and the amendment so that we can progress in our planning. Before we apply for our day license with TABC, we need to have approval of the City Council. Each year, Fiesta Castle Hills is growing. This year, we will be evaluated by the San Antonio Fiesta Commission to become an official Fiesta San Antonio event. Therefore, we will never again worry about using the term fiesta. With that, each year, the Fiesta Castle Hills Committee has agreed to try new ideas. This year, we have several new events. The one we are here talking about tonight revolves around our music festival and the sale of alcohol. We have 4 bands scheduled to play throughout the day, culminating with the band Top Shelf playing in the evening. The Fiesta Castle Hills Committee sees the sales of alcohol as an added revenue source for our group. Increased revenue allows us to support more community organizations in the future. As most of you know, we raised approximately $6,000 in sponsorships last year. Of that, more than 40% was returned to our community with our donation of $2,500 to the Castle Hills Police Department for gym equipment. The committee has already agreed to make a $2,000 donation to the Castle Hills Fire Department for gym equipment this year. We have met with leaders of the King William Fair to better understand how they handle revenue, specifically alcohol-related revenue. They were very gracious to sit down and tell us some of their growing pains and how they solved their problems. We spoke of the amount of alcohol, the type of alcohol, best practices, TABC rules, wristbands, and ticket sales. Our group is ready to move forward on several issues regarding security, brown bag or BYOB alcohol, alcohol signage posts required by TABC, applying for the TABC license, and many more logistical arms, but cannot until we get your approval. Finally, I would like to say that we understand the concerns of Castle Hills residents that don't want this to happen. Your decision tonight will have a lasting impact on varied activities in the future. For example, for the last 3 years, I have been asked to have a taste of Castle Hills. How can we plan for an activity like that? Where would we find volunteers or to plan or to staff any activity in the future? We ask that you amend Chapter 4 and allow sales and consumption of alcohol at special events. Thank you. And we'll be here for questions.
Thank you, John. All right, let's get started here. I think we're going to start to my right. Mr. Paul, did you have any questions for John or the community organization, please?
Well, more for the city than the community, well, I guess community organization also. The 4 things I think are important, obviously, is the time the event will finish. The time events, in other words, we have an ordinance that if we adopt this, we have it, to me, a general ordinance. Now, to assure that we close at 10, have security, whatever's necessary. Mr. Brennan, can we get a supporting document that when they get permits, they sign up and say, this is what you have to accept? Or does that have to be enumerated in this document?
I don't think it needs to be enumerated, those details in the ordinance.
Okay.
But there will be some form or application that will be submitted to do this, and they'll have to show that they can get the license from the state and meet the city's, just the housekeeping requirements like the police protection and outside liquor and timing and so forth.
And insurance and everything.
And insurance, yeah.
Mr. Brennan, what about, I brought this up, I think, what about a lease for $1 or something like that for the time they use it? Is that still a good thing, or is that kind of passé?
I don't think that helps anything,
Okay,
Councilman.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. McLean, did you have any questions or comments regarding the item on the table, please?
I don't have any questions. I'm just happy we're looking at something new.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, did you have any questions or comments for the item on the table for the committee?
No, I've asked my questions and had them answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trevino, did you have any questions or comments regarding this upcoming item on the table?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple questions for Mr. Brennan. This would be a citywide ordinance, Mr. Brennan? Or is this specifically just for city property?
This would just be city property. I don't think it's intended that, well, actually, the way the ordinance is worded, we can authorize a waiver, I guess, anywhere in the city. There's, geographic restrictions in our own code, so, but there are parts of the city that are not in those geographic restrictions, so I assume that anybody could try to have a 3-day event permit somewhere else.
And that leads me to my next question. How is it that Aggie Park, just educating myself, how is it that Aggie Park can serve alcohol?
I don't know, maybe they don't fit within any of these, I don't know, are they 300 feet from a school or a church or a public school or a church?
They're right next to a church. I
Right
think
next to a church? Good question, I don't know. Oh, somebody's saying they don't sell.
Oh,
Is
okay.
it set up as like a social club?
John? Thank you, Judy. That might be an interesting subject to bring up the next time something like that happens. Now we have a law in effect, excuse me, we could in a few minutes have a law in effect that would require them to get a permit, which
Well,
means,
we'll check on that. I don't know what the basis of their.
would we have to
so-
come back then and set the
No.
permit amounts at that time?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this is good for, as far as it goes. This is not a mandatory thing. You don't have to authorize a waiver. It's permissive. It says you're able to, but the city, well, it really says the city council may authorize a waiver of the prohibition. So it's a general ordinance, and I don't know where it cuts the rest of the city, but we'll find out, I guess,
Okay,
when people
thank
come
you.
up and want waivers.
Mr. Trevino?
And one last question, Mr. Brennan. Is this on a case-by-case basis, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It says you may authorize a waiver. You're not mandated or obligated to issue any waivers.
So does that mean that once we pass this, they would have to come back and ask for an individual?
That's the way I understand it. I think that's the intent of the ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, you still have to follow the only person that needs one is within the prohibited areas, and y'all are going to consider it, I guess, on a case-by-case basis.
so that would mean the community organization would have to come back sometime between now and the 21st to file? Is that correct?
You mean this group would have to come
Yes,
back?
sir.
Yeah, they're going to have to submit an oh, I see what you're saying, is whether it's going to have to come back to y'all or else just come through the window.
I'm just trying to understand.
I thought that's what we were doing here.
Well, the ordinance was written, we were amending the code, so we wanted to make it a general permissive ordinance.
We can amend the motion.
Yeah, you could. Have y'all submitted anything to the city other than just, we want to have it?
Yes, according to TABC, we have to request from the property owner a letter to use the property. And that's what we were doing, and that's what started all of this. So we have been going through the process, but when we found out about the ordinance, that's where everything stopped, and that's why we're here tonight.
Okay, so we're amending the code to authorize a waiver, and, let's see.
But that's at our discretion, correct?
Yeah, it's to your discretion, but the question, I guess, is the agenda item broad enough to get it done for this group, at this meeting?
Well, Mr. Brennan, could I make a motion to amend the ordinance to include a waiver for this year for the CHCO, to where the ordinance just has one waiver already in it to solve that problem, and then in the future, any group that wants to, it could be Antonian, it could be St. George, it could be any school or any place that's within a certain area of a church or school that would be prohibited, you know, if they wanted a fair or something, they
Yeah.
would come for a waiver.
Maybe a plan would be, you've already made a motion and a second to approve the ordinance which authorizes it in general, and you could amend the motion to specifically authorize this group for this date, whatever the dates are. It wouldn't be in the ordinance, but it would be part of the action taken.
Mr. Brennan, is it appropriate to make an amendment at this point?
Yes.
You done? For now?
One last question for Mr. Kenny. Were there going to be additional security, or?
That all depends on the outcome of the vote tonight. We already have, for every year, for the 9 years that we've been doing it, we contract with off-duty Castle Hills Police Department, and we don't have alcohol. So the assumption would be, yes, we would go back to Johnny and Captain Zuniga and say, are there more? And if not, we would need to find more security. So if this is passed, yes, there would be.
Thank you.
And you know, it might be good, Mr. Councilman, in the motion that is maybe going to be amended here to adopt the ordinance as presented and then authorize approval of the waiver for this event, for this organization, with the police protection stipulated, that no outside liquor be brought in during the event, the time that's going to be approved, and if there's an insurance requirement, include that in there, that the city, that the requirement will be insurance stipulation to protect the city for liability for damages or claims against the city for doing this.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to say that's a really good idea, just because I know that might not be an issue with the community organization, but if we're going to open up the floodgates, I'd like to make sure that we have the protections in place.
Good point. Ms. McLean, did you want to move forward?
All right, I would like to make a motion that we amend the ordinance to include a specifically authorized waiver for the Castle Hills Community Organization to sell alcoholic beverages within this prohibited distance, should they be successful in getting a special 3-day wine and beer permit from the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission for their event, for their fiesta event that's scheduled on, their fiesta events, which are scheduled on Saturday, April 21st. Subject to having additional security, providing insurance, and what was the other thing we had? Prohibition of bringing external beverages onto the premises.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Minnie, did you get that? Hopefully nobody will need to have it revised. So we have a motion from Ms. McLean to amend the original motion. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second on the table. All in favor of the amendment? It is unanimous, thank you. John, hang on, we're not through. So let's go back to the original.
I got paperwork I got to do.
Mr.
Oh,
Paul, did you have any final statements before we get going?
Yeah, we need to remember that Fiesta, Castle Hill, San Antonio, whatever, is Fiesta's party. That doesn't mean drunken party. But we have events all day long, and we haven't had bands at night like this. So the people who are interested in this will come back for the bands and would appreciate, I guess, a drink or two or whatever the case may be. And so that's the reason I like this. I want to make sure that what we just approved as an amendment isn't restrictive to, we have an overall general ordinance here we're voting on, but like, for example, does this automatically give Castle Hills organization their right to come to, does it give them automatic right next year? What if it's rowdy and if we don't want to do it again because of circumstances of the outcome, which I doubt, but do they have an automatic the way we did this amendment?
I specifically included their April 21st date in my amendment.
Okay, well then, you might have to wait 7 years, but, okay.
Ms. McLean, do you have any other comments?
No.
Ms. Scott?
No, no further comments.
Mr. Trevino?
Yes, sir, you know I do. Just following up on Mr. Paul's comments, as I understand this, each time anybody will try to get a waiver, they'll have to come before council, Mr. Brennan, correct?
Unless we change this in some other way, yes.
Well, and
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I'd like to give the city an opportunity to have a little fun and make additional money. And I think if we can show to be responsible, which I'm sure we can, then there's no reason we wouldn't have a problem going forward for future years.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. John, I want to thank you as the mayor for finally bringing this forward. As you know, in the past, it's been kind of an underlying current that the mayor has control over commons and things like that. I even think it's in an ordinance. I sure am glad that the council has decided to take this on and the city has. Also, I want to remind everybody that, Mr. Paul brought up this will be the first time out of the chute when we're selling alcohol. Now, when they get their permit, I want to remind, I own a catering company, so I know. The first time they get their license, they're going to be coached, they're going to be making sure that that their people know when somebody's had too much to drink. They have to sign off on that. It's a responsibility, okay? It's not everybody's going to go out there and get drunk and have a great time like the mayor. But it was, not like the mayor. But anyway, we're there to have a good time. We're not there, and I don't see any problem, especially with the group and everything that is moving this forward, why we can't have a good time and start this as a Castro Hills tradition from this date forward. So with that said, we have a motion and we have a second on the table. I don't think anybody really needs to have it repeated for the final to allow this to happen. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Let's go have a party.
Thank you all.
Okay. Announcements by the mayor and council. Mr. Paul, you're excused. I think you have a grandson thing this evening? Yes, sir. Okay. Does anybody have any announcements or anything coming up? All right, they would like to talk about now before we get into the regular meeting? Okay. With that said, I will adjourn this meeting, and it is now 6:19.